Hey guys, welcome to Algebra 1, Lesson 79. Today we're talking about something called consecutive integers. So if you pick a number on the number line, for example, 1, the very next number, and we're going to represent that number 1 with an n, the very next number would be 2. That's the same as 1 plus 1 to get to 2. So that means if I represent n with 1, the next number I can represent as n plus 1. Because even if the number that I picked was 4 as n, the very next number, 5, is 4 plus 1. So the very next number would be n plus 1. So we call numbers that are just one unit away from something a consecutive integer. The next number, if I wanted to know the third number from n, so I have n plus 1, I have another 1. So that would be n plus 2. And we know that it works the same for whatever number would be n, because if I wanted to know what number is 2 away from 4, it would be 5, 6, which is 4 plus 2. So it's n plus 1, n plus 2. If I want to know 4 consecutive integers, it would be n plus 3. If I wanted to know 5 consecutive integers, it would be n plus, n plus 4. So your first integer is always n. The second, n plus 1. Third, n plus 2, so on and so forth. Okay? Now, let's see how we use that to solve problems. So our first example says, find 3 consecutive integers such that the sum of the first and the third is 146. Okay, so we're putting together what we know about consecutive integers with how to write an equation. So first of all, let's start by representing our numbers. So our first integer we represent with n. Now I want to know consecutive integers, so numbers that are right next to each other. So the next number would be n plus 1. And the next number would be n plus 2. I have to use n because I don't know what the number is yet. I want to know what 3 consecutive numbers. And now I can put it into the equation that it asks for. It says find 3 consecutive integers. So here are the consecutive integers, how we would represent them, such that the sum of the first and the third is 146. So sum means add. So that means I want to add the first integer, n, plus the third integer. Well, that would be n plus 2. So whatever n is, when I add it to the third number, which would have to be n plus 2, that's going to give me 146. So now I need to simplify. Since I have positives, I can just drop my parentheses. N plus n I know is 2n. So I have 2n plus 2. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides so I can work on getting n by itself. So now I have 2n equals 144. Divide 2n by 2. So n equals, equals 72. So that means the first number is 72. The second number would be 72 plus 1, so it's 73. And the third number would be 74. And you can always check it. It said that the first and the third number added together needed to equal 146. So 72 plus 74, 2 plus 4 is 6, 7 plus 7 is 14, so 146. That's how it works, okay? Super simple, right? Let's try another one. Okay, we'll erase all this work. Okay. It says find 3 consecutive integers. So we already have our 3 consecutive integers written out, such that twice the sum of the first 2 is 2 less than 3 times the third. Okay, think about this very, very carefully. Go through it piece by piece. The sum of the first 2 is, okay, stop at the is because we know that's the equal sign. So let's do one side at a time. Twice the sum of the first 2. Well, the sum of the first 2 would be n plus n plus 1. Now it's twice this sum, so 2 times n plus 1. Now we have is, so we have our equal sign. Is 2 less than 3 times the third? Well, let's start with 3 times the third. That would be 3 times n plus 2. But it says it's 2 less than that. So when we find this answer, we have to subtract 2 from it to get 2 less than whatever this is. So you have to think through it like that. Make sure that you're analyzing very carefully. If you don't start setting up the equation correctly, then you're not going to get the correct answer. So make sure that you set the equation up correctly. Okay, let's combine. N plus n, I know is 2n. So I have 2 times 2n plus 1, which would be 4n to distribute. 2 times 2n is 4n. 2 times 1 is 2, so 4n plus 2. Over here, I have 3n plus 6 minus 2. Excuse me. Okay, since this is a positive, I'm going to go ahead and drop this parentheses. Then I can simplify, and I just have 3n plus 4, because 6 plus a negative 2 would be 4. Okay? Let me just check one thing here. Yeah, okay. All right, so now I'm going to subtract 2 from this side. So I have 4n equals 3n plus 2. Now I'm going to subtract 3n from this side so I can get my n's all on one side. I'm choosing to subtract the 3n because I want to get rid of, the smaller number without making a negative number. If I subtracted 4n, first of all, I'd be left with 0 over here. And then secondly, I get a negative number when I subtract 4 from 3, and I don't want that. So I get just n, because 4 minus 3 is 1, equals 2. And that's it. So I know my first number is 2, my second number is 3, and my third number is 4. Super simple, right? The trickiest part really is just making sure that you get the equation written out correctly. If you want to text me and just double check, write out all of your equations and then text me with your equations to double check and make sure, Miss Ashley, do I have it written out correctly? That way you don't go through all of this work and you get the wrong answer because you didn't get that first part. That's perfectly fine. Okay, let's do one more example before we go to your practice. Okay. Find 4 consecutive integers such that 6 times the sum of the first and fourth is 26 less than 10 times the third. Okay, so we want 4 consecutive integers. So we have to add on another. So this would be n plus what? N plus 3. So we left off with n plus 2, so we just go down to n plus 3. All right. So let's write out our equations. We have 6 times the sum of the first and fourth is. Okay, stop at the is, that's where your equal sign is. 6 times what? Well, the sum of the first and fourth. So the first would be, of course, n, and the fourth is n plus 3. So n plus n plus 3, and then it's 6 times that. Now we have is, so we have our equal sign. Okay, then it says 26 less than 10 times the third. Well, that means we're going to be subtracting 26, but we have to subtract it from 10 times the third. So that would be 10 times the third one would be n plus 2. Now, I just want you to notice we don't use in this equation n plus 1, and that's okay because we'll still be able to figure it out as soon as we know n. Okay? So let's simplify. We have, this would be 2n right here. So 6 times 2n is 12n, plus 6 times 3 is 18, equals. Over here I have 10n. Whoops, forgot my n. 10n. 10 times 2 would be 20. Minus 26. 20 minus 26, let's just go ahead and simplify that right there. Gives me a negative 6. Okay, now I can start to solve. Since 10n is smaller than 12n, I want to move the 10n over here. So I'm going to subtract 10n from this side and 10n from this side. Now I'm going to kill two birds with one stone, and in the same step that I move over my 10n, I'm going to move over my whole number. So I'm going to subtract the 18. Since I'm putting my n on this side, I have to move my whole number over here to over here. Okay? Don't let that confuse you. If you feel like this is too many steps in one, then don't do it. Do something else, okay? 12n minus 10n leaves me with 2n, and my 18 minus 18 cancels out. Here, my 10n's cancel, and then I have negative 6 plus a negative 18. That gives me a negative 24. Divide both sides by 2, and I get n equals a negative 12. So now that I know what n is negative 12, that means the next number would be n plus 1, it would be negative 11. Then negative 10, and negative 9. Okay? All right. I want you guys to get started with your practice, but I'm going to help you get started with your practice. I want to talk through how you set it up first. That way you feel a little more confident in how to set up the equation. Okay, so letter A, find 3 consecutive integers such that the sum of the first and third is 142. Okay, so for A, you're looking for 3 integers. The sum of the first and third, so the first is n, plus the third would be n plus 2, is 142. So that's how you start with letter A. With letter B, it says find 4 consecutive integers. So letter B, you have n, n plus 1, n plus 2, and n plus 3, such that 8 times the sum of the first and third is. Okay, so we'll stop at the is. We have the sum of the first and third, n plus 2. And it's 8 times that sum, is. Then we have 40 greater than 10 times the fourth. So we have 10 times the fourth, 10 times n plus 3, but then we have to add, what does it say? 40, because it's 40 greater than that. Okay, so that's how you set it up. Go ahead and pause your practice, or pause your video now to do your practice. Okay, you should be back now. If you have not paused your video, please pause. For letter A, you should have gotten 70, 71, and 72. For letter B, you should have gotten 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, that is it for our lesson today. Tomorrow we're going to continue talking about consecutive integers, so hopefully it will be even easier for you tomorrow. See you guys then. Bye.